And you.
All right, so thank you for that. So we do have on the screen our agenda for today. We also have both here in the room. I think we have them here as well, our minutes from our last meeting. And so as is our common practice, before we get too far into today's presentation, which we're looking forward to, I know we didn't have very much of an opportunity in advance of this meeting to review last meeting's minutes. But I certainly would accept a motion to accept those minutes if we have. Okay, so I've got a first from Cecil and a second from Dana, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Dana. I appreciate that. So we'll approve those into minutes. So thank you there. And Trish, just as a quick point of clarification, did we have any member sponsor for our snack items and stuff for today, or
Nope.
not today? Okay, we've had sponsorship in the past, so that thank you for that. Appreciate that. So I do want to make just a quick announcement in the way of general housekeeping relative to this committee and one of our other sister community committees, the Government Relations Council. Many folks that attend this attend both, which is fantastic. But what we really want to see moving forward, and I need to be better about this too, is trying to go to the chamber website and RSVP for these meetings. It helps us better prepare for how to accommodate folks in physical meeting where we can. Obviously, we like to really drive attendance in the community through these various committees that we have, and keep folks in the know. So we love your attendance, and we'd love to also know that you plan to attend in future meetings as well. We'll put it that way. So that's great there. Sure. We did have also Todd jump in. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, sir, you can introduce.
Morning, Todd Aronson, CEO of Visit Modesto. Sorry I was late.
We're glad to have you here.
Hi, Todd.
So today's presenter is very timely for our region here, and a lot of activity that goes on in and around August and September, kind of a 60-day window there, in the results of all kind of work that go on throughout the year in the almond industry, and specifically ag. So one of the things that this committee has not really taken a deep dive in recently is some of the economic impact and economic development that we have going on in and around the ag industry. And obviously, as we know here locally, greater Modesto area and our region, a big piece of that conversation has to do with almond and nut production. So to that end, I've been introduced to and invited Ben Gowdy, Director of Member Relations with Blue Diamond, to share with us today. And we'll definitely look forward to the presentation here. And maybe before you jump in, if you can give us a little bit of professional background as well. Sure. And I know from what you shared with us that we'd really like to be able to have interaction and Q&A and those kinds of things today too. So
I'll please let's keep this interactive.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me. My name is Ben Gowdy, Director of Member Relations for Blue Diamond Growers. Been with Blue Diamond. This is my 8th season with Blue Diamond. My background is in agricultural sales and marketing prior to coming to Blue Diamond, both on a national scale and local. Also been a practicing pest control advisor and crop advisor to growers. Both the Bachelor's of Science from CCG Field Agriculture Science, and absolutely love to talk anything about agriculture and all and the market. So absolutely. So for those of you online, so please feel free to chime in if you've got a question. I've got a lot of data, a lot of information. I'm going to try and keep it on a macro level as far as almond economics and the almond market, but certainly if you've got specific questions, we can dive into that. And I'm going to move along pretty quickly because I've got about 40 slides to cover. I want to make sure there's plenty of room here to talk about, but I'll go to the next slide. The first thing, obviously, thank you so much for having us come in. This is I'm going to go through these topics here in pretty quick fashion. And the next slide, of course, the most important thing, I have to talk about Blue Diamond because as a member of the community, our co-op and our members throughout the community are part of everything you do here. And I always start with our mission, which is to maximize the opportunities of each grower interest. Blue Diamond with their almonds. And we are a cooperative, we're a grower-owned cooperative. So our mission, my mission, when I work out in the field directly with all of our almond growers, is to how can we help them make more money? And that's that is true with other businesses in the industry, but as a cooperative, our sole purpose is to market their almonds and help them succeed. So the other thing that we look at a lot is how do we deliver those benefits to the almonds of the world? And partnership, quality, innovation, integrity are all the things that we really value. And I'll talk a lot more about, it gives me an opportunity to just talk about the co-op a little bit because it's a member of the community here. So on the next slide, I just kind of want to run you through a little profile because it'll set the stage for where we're coming from and our view of the marketplace and the responsibility that we bear as a leader in the market as well. So we are the largest processor in the market. There are about 100 other almond handlers, many of which are in Stanislaus County in this community. We have 3 processing facilities. So Sacramento is our administration's headquarters, and it's our facility that's been there since the early 1900s. So we've been going since 1910. However, we've made a very substantial commitment to Stanislaus County, both in Modesto and Salida, depending on where you're standing in our plant. Is Modesto on one end and Salida on the other end. But if you've not been by there, we're the corner of Sisk and Kiernan, and we also have a gift shop. I'll put the plug in there, of course. But that facility is built out at this point in time. We just invested heavily in a new warehouse and in a new manufacturing facility. This picture up on the top is the corner of Kiernan and Sisk. That is a state-of-the-art processing facility that does pasteurization, non-toxic pasteurization, steam pasteurization, as well as we produce flour and other products in there. And then our other facility, so I'll point out that the lower side is Sacramento, which is if you ever get to 18th and C Street in Sacramento, that's our older facility. Just look for the silos. But I'll also draw attention to our neighbor to the south here, which is Turlock. We have a state-of-the-art, ready-to-eat food processing facility there in Turlock, and we just put on an expansion. If you can see, those of you online, this picture of the front side of it there is that to expand onto. We've got 80 acres, so we're going to continue with a pretty large commitment over the decades to Stanislaus County. I would say about half of our workforce is here in Modesto and Stanislaus County. And so we definitely see a future strong point for us there. We have two main businesses, which is, we call them our global ingredients business and our consumer business. So if you see a Blue Diamond label on a can, that's our consumer business, but the bulk of our pounds of our business is through to people who do other things with almonds. So they will put them in a bag can. People like companies like Kellogg's, Nabisco, General Mills, where they'll take them and turn them into honey bunches of oats. And most of those almonds, with the exception of Sacramento, they come through our Salida facility. So Salida is our main receiving facility. That's also where we have 8 large warehouses that store over 50 million pounds apiece. And they're quietly sitting there nice and cool for keeping the almonds intact for the rest of the year. So I'll move on to the next slide. And most importantly, I want to talk about our growers. We have about 3,000 members of the cooperative. They are member owners. We have our board of directors are growers. We have 9 districts throughout the state, stemming from up in the Butte County to Glenn County to Hemet area, all the way down to Kern County. And we have a representative of each. I would say in the Stanislaus County area, we are highly representative. I would say about 1/3 of our members are either within Stanislaus County or within reach of Stanislaus County. So in the areas like Ripon, Manteca, and down just south of here. So, and we work very closely. My role is membership is to work with those growers on their contracting, be a business advisor for them, and help them get their crop all the way through each year. So, almonds are all that we do. So we're unique as a business and as a co-op in that we really don't focus on other products, and that gives us a laser focus to really maximize our footprint in the marketplace. We're focused on innovation. You'll see, I'll highlight a couple new products, the elote and the Korean barbecue. If you haven't seen those yet, they are excellent, excellent. And we are all over the world. We are increasing our footprint in many of our international markets, and with many products such as our almond breeze. You find that we've got a lot of room to grow. We also sell a lot of almonds into India, China, and Asia and the Pacific area, which is a large growing market because of a burgeoning middle class. And one thing I want to point out is we really got to focus on sustainability. We have an incentive plan for our growers that incentivizes them to report their practices and to adopt new practices. And then we're really being careful about water, carbon emissions, and then we have a strong theme of supporting pollinators and biodiversity with our growers, because they are the ultimate stewards of the land. If you look at our co-op that's been in place since 1910, many of our growers have been with us since almost that very beginning. Many of the workers that we work with are third and fourth generation and moving on.
Right.
And I'll talk a little bit about the length of lifespan of orchards here. All right. Okay, and I have to put this plug in here. Both of our plants in Stanislaus County are California Green Business Network certified. I believe you guys probably remember the ceremony that was very exciting for both Salida, which was the first one, and then Turlock. We're still working on second.
But we can't do that one directly, but
Yeah.
we can keep encouraging.
Thank you. Yeah, that one just by age has got some more challenges.
Yeah.
It is a California historic building, and there's just kind of constrained with a lot of things to do there. Although we've made a lot of upgrades, but the facilities here are much more modern, especially the new end of Salida, and then Turlock is they really are putting in. So.
The Salida green ribbon cutting was the first one we got to do.
That's
So
right.
Big
That's
deal
very
for us.
exciting.
Yep.
Yeah, we're so excited to be a part of that. Thank you for all of your support. And speaking of support, community engagement is a big thing for Blue Diamond. We want to make sure that we're engaged in the community, and not only working with our growers, not only bringing the benefits to almost the world, but also in our local communities. I think you see much of that. We try to be as involved as we can at Blue Diamond, and touching the right people in the right places. So. All right, so let's talk almonds. And I really didn't want to talk about growing almonds today too much, but I am going to just briefly touch on sort of the life cycle and what got us here and what will get us there, and then we'll talk about the business of almonds. But the natural cycle of almonds, we're actually over here on the right hand side. We're at harvest right now, but it all starts in February. And actually, I like to say, even though the leaves come off the trees during the wintertime, there's something going on in the almond orchard every month of the year, every day of the year. And what's also important too, from a chamber aspect, is all of the supporting businesses that support our growers, and also the businesses. There are inputs that are going into these orchards at every single time of the year. So at Bloom, probably the largest thing that happens there is all the bees will come in. We are the largest pollination event in the world in California. Over 90% of the nation's domestic honeybee hives come in to California and are ready to go for the big show, which typically starts around Valentine's Day. We bring the flowers for Valentine's Day across the valley, and that typically happens about 5-6 weeks as Bloom. We are very critical time. We're watching weather. One of the things that we like to see also too is, if you look at other crops, almond growers are a little crazy. Their crop blooms in the wintertime. February still is the wintertime. This year we had a major frost in the north part of the state, really had an impact on yields. And then we settle into the growing season from March through June, where those nuts are in rapid expansion. Growers are watering, fertilizing, attending to pest control, doing a lot of pruning, that sort of thing. So that's the fun and steady time of the year. And then we really get to about July, about the 4th of July, where those nuts will mature, and we call it hull split. Some people call it cracking open, where that hull, which if you think about it, they're all of the prunus species compared to a peach. The outside of the hull is actually the fleshy part, and then you've got the shell, and the kernel is the seed. So not too different than a peach, actually very closely related to a peach. So that outside hull starts to open up, signaling that we're on our way to harvest. And then as they dry up, we will shake them off the tree, let them dry on the ground. And we hope that all of our growers are being good citizens this time of year by managing their dust. But also be productive. So that happens and really through early October, some of the latest varieties come off in October. All right. And then the next component takes place. There's an intermediate component before growers' almonds will come to us. There's a huller sheller, which a number of huller shellers in the area, and they are some pretty big size operations, and they will take that hull and that shell off. They'll also serve as that first stage of cleanup for almonds to remove the twigs and sticks and dirt and rocks out. And then they come to us for manufacturing. And as I said, Salida is our main receiving point. We've got outside receiving points. We do storage here, and then we move them intermodally down to Turlock or Sacramento for further manufacturing, sliced, diced, slivered, floured, flavored, or just as a whole almond to sell into the marketplace. So lots happens throughout the rest of the year. So even though we're receiving, and we typically will receive in through the wintertime. Last year we were receiving all the way through March, which was a big crop. And then we'll be manufacturing. We start manufacturing as soon as that crop comes. Just briefly on varieties, you may hear some terms out there. Before, go ahead and keep going. About 100 varieties, of which about 13 are pretty typical. I just want to point out, nonpareil. So if you grab a bag of trail mix, nonpareil is that nice looking, good tasting almond that doesn't really have anything done to it. And but almonds must be pollinated. Most almonds must be pollinated by a cross pollinator. So we call those the pollinator varieties. Oftentimes referred to as California types. There's also some other types. So for the sake of simplicity, you've got nonpareils along with your pollinators, and more modern plantings that are self-fertile, where they do not have to have multiple varieties in the orchard in order to cross-pollinate. And that is driving a lot of the new orchard development, or as growth replace that, becoming more efficient. They do not require as many bees, or technically bees at all. They can pollinate themselves. So that's kind of the wave of the future. So almond growing is evolving and changing. But you may hear these terms and you may see differences in almonds. There are lots of differences, and we look each almond, we look for the highest and best value in that. And that's where we produce the market.
Oh, let me click back on it.
There we go. So maybe I'll stop there. If anybody online has any questions. Otherwise, I'll keep going. Okay.
Actually, I sort of have a question. So you said there's several now types of trees that are self-pollinating. Have they been engineered to do that?
So classically bred. So there are all almonds are still traditional cultivation. There's no GMO, but they have been bred. It takes many years. Matter of fact, Grant Zager with Zager Nurseries, who just on the west side of Modesto, developed what we call the Independence almond, which is the largest and most accepted self-fertile almond. And it's been literally was his grandfather's first endeavor, and he is bringing it to the marketplace. So that's how long it takes.
Wow.
And he's got several other varieties that are coming through. It's almost a generational endeavor, and there are other methods for breeding almond, but I don't think we'll ever get to anything outside of traditional plant breeding, because it takes so long to pick up those characteristics. And, most of the time I give a cultural presentation, and I use that word a lot, cultural. It is cultural to grow almonds, and a lot of what we do is science, a lot of what we do is business, and a lot of what we do is technology, but it's all cultural. It's how you put those together. And when you have an almond orchard, and I'll talk about the establishment here, it's a 25 to 30 year commitment. So it's just like building a house. Yes, there's technology involved in the house, but there's no style, and you have to live in it. So making a little stretch of an analogy there, but it really is cultural. All the aspects of how you want to live with it, and how it relates to the marketplace. So I'll make note. I saw there Mallory Hayes joined us. Mallory is our government affairs manager. And Mallory, if you have anything to add to this, please let me know. Great to have you involved here. So, all right. I'm going to shift gears and move on to the market itself. So almond market. California produces 80% of all the almonds in the world. That's because of our Mediterranean climate. Our Mediterranean climate permits it to be cold and wet in the wintertime, which almonds need chilling and they need that wet weather. We need the snowpack. But yet dry in the summertime so that we can dry those kernels out naturally and take advantage of the sunshine, so that we can do that in a efficient cultural manner, as I was mentioning. And by the numbers, there are a couple of other countries, the Middle East, Spain, Portugal markets, but we're still the powerhouse here in California. And as we look at where those almonds are going, about 67% of that crop is exported, and the rest of it's domestic use. And the U.S. is the single largest economy of almonds. Now that's growing. I think almonds date back to biblical times, so around the world people know what almonds are and they like almonds. But almonds traditionally, if you look compared to other foods, they're a little higher up on the cost spectrum. So now, if you look at countries like India and China with burgeoning and growing middle classes, that's where the demand for almonds is increasing. And if we look at it year over year, it's been about a 3% increase in demand for almonds over that time. So we really have a really strong demand curve for it. Our challenge is on the production side is how do we match that production with demand? If we look at statewide, almonds provide about a $5.6 billion in value. And that's significantly ahead of walnuts and pistachios, just to call that out, even though those are major markets. Almonds are still the king as far as that. I'll call out here too, based at the Doubletree, is the Almond Board of California. That is the federal marketing order for the industry. So they represent all almond growers. There is an assessment, and their charge is to market almonds worldwide, just to move volume and bring awareness. They do things like nutrition research. They also do production research and then communicating that out. And so they also work with all the other handlers in the marketplace for support and regulatory issues. So we work very closely with them as a cooperative. All the independent handlers work very closely with them. And we're all moving the market forward in one direction. So go to the next slide. So looking at regions where almonds are produced, and you'll hear I interchange almond and almond, right? We are in almond country because almonds have been produced here for a long time. In the South, you look at most of the orchards down there are the first or second generation. It was long thought that it was too warm to produce almonds in the south part of the state. More modern varieties make that permissible, but sort of the core areas have always been around Stanislaus County, Merced, and also Chico, Butte County. We look at historically where originally the Spanish missionaries brought in almonds from Spain, and has emerged, and now about half of the production is in the southern part of the state, and become a real powerhouse.
How can you go back to that slide? Isn't water a bigger issue the further south you go?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And yet they produce the largest amount.
Yeah. So actually it's very interesting. So one of the things is, yes, water is in tight supply in the south, but if you look at the highest value crop that they can produce down there, that has been almonds. And so actually also with the way that the heat is down there, they get warmer temperatures. They tend to produce more on an acre basis and actually are very water efficient down. But water is their constraining resource. That's where some areas down there probably won't see almonds planted again in the future because they don't have enough water. But traditionally, the area down there has been alfalfa and other tree crops, right? So they've converted over to almonds. But that's a very good question. So this is a different version of it. I want to highlight here Stanislaus County. This is last year, about 410 million pounds produced in Stanislaus County. Wow. If you take a simple $2.10 average price, that's around $900 million. But obviously, what I want to also say is there's value in that shell and that hull that is used as animal feed. Also, secondary benefits to the economy. So well over $1 billion of value in production for Stanislaus County. And there are other statistics. I could provide, but the other context I wanted to show is Stanislaus County is actually the number 3 compared to Fresno, Kern, then Stanislaus, then Merced County after that. So Stanislaus County is a really, really strong producer of almonds, and that has historically been the case, and I think that'll continue to be the case. To the point a minute ago about water security, Stanislaus County growers have some of the best access to water and historical water rights. And I believe there's someone from the district on the call. They can probably speak to that a lot better than I can, but growers in this area feel like they've got secure water, they've got good water and productive soil. So almond production around this area will continue. In the south part of the valley, there will be some areas where almond production will come out due to regulation. So, and you can imagine if you've got a profitable crop that is in demand and prices have been high, you're going to see growers migrate and plant that crop. The other thing about almonds compared to other crops historically in California too, is it's mechanized. You can almost completely manage an almond orchard from planting all the way through harvest by machine, very little handling. And so that has been driving a lot of the conversion of ag land.
What's the average price per pound the last couple?
Average price per pound the last couple of years has been just over $2. But historically it's been around $2.50. You look at a 10-year
A few
average.
years ago.
It was, yeah. And I'll show you a chart here. Matter of fact, let's move to the next chart and I'll explain that. Yeah, it was. So during the droughts of 13, 14, 15, almonds were in tight supply. We had a huge demand during those years. Almond demand was growing by 7 to 9%. So you had the 7 to 9% demand increase. You had a severe drought, so you had production drops. And so, yeah, supply and demand. Almonds work in that true supply and demand model, where you have lots of supply and the demand doesn't meet it. You'll have low prices. If you have low supply and a high demand, the price will be high. So we did. And you can see here, we had, so this is receipts, this is pounds that were produced. This line here, this is yield. So that may not mean a whole lot, but you can see they fluctuate up and down based on risks from the year. And then you'll see also we've matched that with the USDA yield. But so what happens is from year to year, we get these different up and down yield patterns. And so in the marketplace, unfortunately, the marketplace wants to know what stability is. So we see prices moderate based on supply and demand. So that's part of the reason I put this chart in here is if you look at the
brokers that are out there, I guess I don't understand how it works with Blue Diamond, but the independent brokers, they go out, let's say I'm an almond grower and I've got 100 acres, and they lock me in before it's even pollinated.
Oftentimes they will, yes.
And isn't that fairly risky?
It can be, yeah. It puts a lot of the risk on the growers, and there is a whole section of the market is basically growers that are operating in a free market environment, just like you would if you were day trading stocks, where they decide if they want to sell some today, they may want to sell some for the year, they may want to sell some to keep some and sell some tomorrow. That puts all the risk on the grower. How we do it at Blue Diamond is called pooling. We pool it all together. So we take all of our almonds, all the varieties from all of our growers, put it into a seasonal pool, and our professional marketers will do their best to maximize the value of that. What they do is they'll take each variety, each size, and it will have a distinct pathway through the marketplace. So nonpareil in-shell will go to India. We'll take certain pollinators and we'll put them into manufactured product. And we will also manufacture them and add some value to that. So that makes the return even higher. And so essentially all our growers have to do is focus on producing that good crop, and then we maximize that value for them. And
So there's no negotiation.
No, it's
with your members.
no.
They find an independent,
Mhm.
and you're a broker.
Mhm.
Once you buy my almonds,
Mhm.
they're harvested. what did they do with it? Did they sell them to you?
Well, they would move them through a handler. So a handler or a processor would store them, pack them, and then sell them. So if it was the handler themselves that essentially brokered for them, that would be part of that arrangement, would be they take a fee for moving those almonds through. And it could be also, you could sell them through a broker trader. They would use a handler to move them through physically and move them into the marketplace, or store them. They would say, hey, we want part now, part then. So yeah, it is a whole section of the marketplace where there is a spot market, which they call call pool, or seasonal pool. There are handlers that have seasonal pool just like us. And many handlers will, they don't have their own sales force. They'll go through brokers and traders. And so there are large traders also in the marketplace. And sometimes those traders will take positions
So
too.
is Fisher not a broker?
They're a handler. They're a handler. Yeah, so they will market the grower for their customers' almonds. Now they may work through some traders and brokers, but I believe they have their own sales force that works directly with buyers too. So
But most of them don't end up selling.
no, we are the almonds that we work with, that we put in the marketplace, come from our own growers. Yes. So they may work independently to sell with a certain company, or they may have traders that they work with as well. There are a large number of traders that move all kinds of nuts around the world, and will say, hey, we need this much of this, and we need this much of this, and they may buy from different outlets too. So yeah, there's a risk management is a very key piece of this, and it gets really complicated.
How many independent small groups, handlers, are there in this area?
In this area, I would estimate that there's a couple of dozen. Yeah, and oftentimes some of those independent are large growers too. There are some large growers that have their own marketing outlets, and they will do that. So Fisher, Travail and Fippen, which is up in Ripon. I'm trying to think of some here. Grizzly Nut, which is east of town. They do their own. Yeah, there's a number that do in this area. Yeah, as well as some of the larger ones down south. So there's about 100 independent handlers.
So there's a number of corporate farms today.
There are.
When, say 10 years ago or 15 years ago, when they started planting out on the east side,
Mhm.
they call those corporate growers that really weren't local farmers in that. Would any of them be affiliated with you, or they do?
We are about 99% family-owned farms. We do have many of our family farms are incorporated, but they're family farms. And then we have a very small number of accounts that are investor-owned. But there are some handlers that they themselves are investor-owned, and there is a fair bit of investor acreage. In the marketplace, there is insurance companies that have come in and bought acreage. There are Wall Street funds, REITs, that are coming in and buying acreage, and oftentimes they'll get contract farmers and contract processors to work with them on that. So that is something that we're seeing quite a bit of in the last few years, and that probably will continue because one of the things about farmland is it's a real estate play.
Are they buying up the family farms there?
Sometimes they are, yes. Sometimes they are. And as I like to say it, the last crop that farmers ever plant are houses. That's happening a lot too. And many of those growers look forward to that. That's their retirement plan. So that will continue as land values increase. We'll see them go into other real estate ventures or consolidation, because if you've got a small family farm, it's hard and it's costly to run, and oftentimes the opportunity to sell out and consolidate with a larger operation is feasible, depending on if you want to be an operator.
Well, years ago, there used to be a lot of peach farmers here.
Mhm.
They converted their lands to
Mhm.
that. So we're piling up
Mhm.
something.
Yeah, as the market goes, things will change a lot. Same thing with grapes. Wine grapes have ebbed and flowed, and give you a comparison. I live up in the Lodi area, and that's all been on wine grapes, solid wine grapes. I've seen more almonds planted up there in the past 5 years than I can ever believe. But when they pull a vineyard out, it's $25,000 just to steel for the stakes to reestablish a vineyard. So they look at that and they go, well, gosh, plant an almond orchard, I don't have to buy all that infrastructure, and that market's almost as good. So it's just, they look for the highest and best value. And we've got a lot of growers now that are sort of putting a pause on almonds because the market, we've been in an oversupply situation, and now a lot of growers are going to pistachios. So yeah, it is always ever changing. It's an evolution. And if you look way back, the whole west side out here with sugar beets out here until that became not really feasible. So it's an evolution. It'll continue to evolve, but yeah, there is still good fundamentals. Next slide, please. So with that acreage planted, we know that acreage is increasing. The last 2 years, this is Land IQ is a geographical information system that we look at. We know that in the last 4 years, there's been tremendous amount of new acres planted, and that's going to have an influence on production. But newer, younger plantings are stronger. They're kind of racehorse plantings, so to speak. If you look back at the plantings back 20, 30 years ago, they were a lot of times they were on their own root, which means that they were susceptible to diseases. Now the new ones are those new self-fertile varieties that produce extremely well and come into production very. This kind of represents where a lot of those plantings are going to take place. Most of the new plantings have been coming in the south. They've been converting low value crops into high value almonds. And we believe that that's also where we'll see some sort of plateau there because of limitations on water. But really the central areas, we call it Merced, Stanislaus, Salem, King County area, it's been a poor almond growing area. Those growers will continue to grow.
In the south, then they convert a lot of cotton.
Oh yeah, a lot of cotton. Cotton went into kind of a low value situation about 10 years ago. Ironically, I took a trip down south this year, the most cotton I've ever seen. So cotton kind of came back. Cotton was like about $1.50 a pound. And, the way that the world food supply and everything's been working, and Ukraine has impacted that as well. There's not a lot of fiber coming out of the eastern countries, and also Brazil hasn't had a great year. So kind of came back to California.
Which one takes the most cotton?
Almonds would take more. All trees take water, and they take about the same amount of water. Cotton, just because of the short period of time that it's in the ground, doesn't use quite as much water. So that's also part of it too. They only have so much water, and they look for a short window crop that they can do that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we see the bearing acreage increasing. And this is the point that I wanted to point is that 4 through 7, please, meaning that, a large portion of our trees, almost a third of all of our trees are young trees coming into the marketplace. And so we're going to see a lot of continued strong production with those young trees. All right, so here's, we kind of started talking about this a little bit, but about the almond prices. And the point that I want to make here on this one here is, if you see these peaks and valleys. So if you'll click forward to the next little animation that I have here, we look at a 25-year annual price, about 203, but we're talking about way back here in the 90s, where, the cost of a gallon of gas was what? About a fifth of what it is now. Right. That was pretty good, $2. We look at the 10-year average price about $265. Now that's taking,
so sorry.
That's taking into account the highs of the drought years and strong demand years, and we're starting to move down we've been down into a crop year for this last couple of years. We've had a lot of supply, and the demand has to catch up. All right, and this illustrates that here too. So we see the farm value, the farm price. So one of the things that we see, we've crept down under $2 this past year because of an oversupply. We believe that that's structural. We believe that will take place, for the maybe one more year, because we had a nearly 3.2 billion pound crop in 2020, which was the largest crop that we'd ever had. It came much quicker than we ever thought it would. And having to move that in the marketplace, and I'll talk about some compounding factors in the next couple of slides. So I'm going to step back, and I'll get back to those compounding factors, but I just want to give you some perspective, the business perspective of, okay, well, what is an investment in an almond orchard? About $6,000 to $8,000 an acre. Really, you can put $9,000 on that now. This is a little older slide, but almost $9,000 just to plant an acre of almonds. Add $1,000 if you're removing old trees because heavy equipment's involved. Annual variable production costs, I would put that down $3,200 to $4,800. And the next slide I'm going to show you is actually going to show how this has increased just since I made this slide. 3 years to get your first crop, 8 to 11 years to recover your initial investment. How many, you're all in business. Would you take that bet?
That's hard.
That's hard, right? And a 20 to 25 year life of the orchard. Now that some orchards can go as long as 30 years and be productive. But this latest oversupply has really challenged this 8 to 11 year recovery initial investment. So I think I've got that here in the next slide.
So on your 3 years to first crop, is that a light crop? Does it take
It's a
that?
light crop, yeah. So 200 to 400 pounds per acre. You're still not recovering any income from that. Maybe you're paying the diesel for that harvest.
Oh,
Where you really don't get into big crops until 6, 7, 8 years, and
wow.
those years
That's
from
double that.
6 to 15 years are really the powerhouse years, and then as that orchard tips over 20 years, it kind of settles down. They get overgrown, trees get blown over. Depending on what kind of pests they've had in the soil, they'll kind of get after those trees over time. They have a curve in a life cycle where they have a sort of a prime period, and then they will taper off, and at some point they become not economically viable.
Just like grapes.
Yeah, just like grapes. Exactly. The way that I like to say it too is in human terms, right? The kids and the teenagers have all the energy and all the power, and then as we go, we like to slow down a little bit. So it's no different there. So this is I tried to represent how do we talk about low prices as it comes to the value and really the investment. And at the bottom of the screen here, I've got the bottom line here is $2 a pound, all the way over to the top line here is about that's 250 pound, or is it 250?
Sorry.
250. So 250 pound. And you think, well, that's 50 cents difference per pound. How much difference does that make? If you look at it, if you had 250 pound, you recover your investment in 11 years. If you get $2 a pound, that puts you out here at 16 years. 16 years to return on investment before you start making any profit, which is above the line here. So we've been in this low price environment, this $2 to $2.10 environment for the last 2 years because of an oversupply situation worldwide. We do believe that's going to self-correct itself. Like I say, almond and farm markets are true supply-demand markets. So what will happen, people will start pulling out older acreage, they'll pull out less desirable acreage. At some point, that acreage will come in balance with that demand. As I said, we don't have a demand problem. Demand is increasing 3+% a year, but it's hard to match that demand to that production. So this is going to really determine what happens in the future. Also, growers, whether they determine if they want to take this bet and look at a 13, 14, 15 year payoff as they plant new orchards. Now, many of our growers will still continue to do this because it's what they do. And as one grower asked them, so why do you do this? Well, we make enough money to stay interested in this. So that's
Just that simple.
there you have it. So here's the other part of it, right? So we've had a low price environment. What's happened with costs the last couple of years? Way up.
Yep.
And we've seen this. I mean, we should do a case study on this because it has been so stark. And if you want to click forward a couple of times on it, not only have the prices increased, if you can get some of the products that you need in order to farm, fuel, chemicals, even things like irrigation pipe. In the midst of the pandemic, we had growers that were trying to put new irrigation systems in, and they would literally drive to the irrigation company and wait there for the truckloads of pipe to come in because things were not coming in because of the supply chain issues worldwide. And that really has settled a little bit. The supplies are there, but the high prices have stuck. And so we're seeing, anywhere from 36 to 47% increases just since 2019. So if we add insult to injury, we've got low prices, low price environment, commodity values.
and a high price input environment. And I always like to say it this way, in my ag business class, my professor said, farmers are the only people that buy at retail and sell at wholesale. It's true. And they buy all their supplies at retail, and then, yeah, they're subject to the market because they're price takers. They can't just, if the market is at $2.50 a pound, yeah, maybe they can get $2.55. Maybe, as we talked about, if they time it right, maybe they can get $2.60, but they're not going to get $4. They're subject to the price taker. So they're kind of stuck between that rock and a hard place. So if we look at it this way, production break even, we're looking at least $1.53 in some cases, and water costs to make it that we started at $1.18. So most of our growers, their break even is in the $1.70 range, and we're not even talking land costs. If you have a land cost and a land payment on top of that, your break even is probably into the $2 plus range, and that gets really, really tough. So we're hoping to see prices return soon.
Yeah.
But you know, water can account for about 30% of that. And even this year, where areas that are water secure, the energy costs to pressurize that PG&E has gone up substantially. So I'll stop there if there's any questions online. I'm moving too fast. All right, we're good. All right, we keep going.
Scroll down. We lost a couple. And our addition here is Councilmember Chris Ricky with City of Modesto. I will click forward and minimize again for you.
All right, so I think I've described this. It's a true supply and demand situation. However, scroll forward to the next animation. You can see that the reality is it's much more complicated than that.
Okay.
And this last year has really taught us this. Last 2 years, the supply chain, the demand for almonds has continued to remain high. Our big challenge this last year, and that's pushed the prices down, is how to get it out. So we've had a lot of lost consumption, meaning typically in the past, if we put an export on the water in Oakland, we put a container of almonds on the water in Oakland, it would be in India in 3 weeks. And you have to meet certain benchmarks in India, for instance, the holidays, Diwali or Chinese New Year in China. And if you don't get it there, it's kind of like getting your Christmas toys here in January, February. It just doesn't work. And so what was happening was those containers were taking 3+ months to get there. And so all through this last 2 years, there's been a lot of containers being moved around the world, just not getting there in time. And then you've got buyers that are gun shy saying, well, maybe I'll wait. And then what's also happening is you get sellers saying, well, nobody wants to buy, I'll lower the price. You get a price situation that's moving downward. So we've got downward pricing pressure, but really the real problem has been supply chain. I believe that we could have had, I would say we could have had at least 20% more value in the marketplace if we could have had free flowing product and moved it to where it needed to go to and match it at the right time. But we got a mismatch because of supply chain. So we're in a much better situation now. So we talked about Aubrey Bencourt, who is executive of the Almond Alliance. She has been amazing in helping move product out of the state. We've been instrumental in working with alternative measures. We're rail carring things across the country down to Long Beach. Portland seems to be the real sticky wicket, and there's limitations there. So we're really looking at diversifying. How do we move product in other areas through other channels? But that looks like that's not going to slow down. I think the pandemic exposed all the weaknesses, and all of the backlogs showed how bad it could be, but it also showed how much our resiliency we don't have in supply chain and how much we need to modernize in many cases. So, so this is sort of a raw, unadulterated look at that up and down pricing curve, and you can see that, you know, really it's almost 10 years from peak to peak. So we are here. I think we would have been a little further along if we hadn't had the supply chain issues. We're hoping that we're on the way up in getting that market to balance out. But I think if this presentation sounds like doom and gloom, it's not. What I want to say is the fundamentals for almond production are there. We've got a lot of challenges such as costs and an oversupply situation that will work itself out. But I think that, you know, moving forward, I think that Those areas that can produce almonds is still going to be one of the most highly valued crops that we're going to see moving forward in California, and also that fits in our regulatory environment where labor and other regulatory costs are going to continue to increase. So kind of the current situation, if we look at things month to month, where we're at right now. So we've had this last crop was a 2.92 billion pound crop, which is the second largest crop of all time. But we've had, as I mentioned, the global shipping challenges, 2 to 3 times longer. And so what we see is year-to-date shipments are down 9.2%. I actually think that's probably not that bad considering truly how catastrophic a lot of the shipping challenges have been. We've been getting stuff out as Blue Diamond, but it takes us 5 times as much work. And we're fortunate that we've got a very professional workforce and people that focus on supply chain when it comes to our affiliates that have smaller handlers. They don't have a lot of the resources to be able to move that stuff out of the country that we do. So when we look at the market as a whole, there's a lot of people that have really been struggling with that supply chain even more than we have, and ended up with more product than we would like to have had. So historically attractive prices. So another adage I always like to say, well, what is the solution to low prices? Is low prices, because eventually it's on sale and people will eat more almonds, and then we'll get the market back in balance. So we've got at least another year before that happens. We're projecting, if you want to go to the next slide, that we're going to carry out. So this is a carry out by year. So at the end of the year, if you sell as many almonds as you want to, you're still going to carry out some, meaning bring some forth. Almonds can be in the system for about 2 years without any concern for spoilage. So typically we like to see about 12 to 15 weeks of supply, or about 20% of supply, so that we can market year round. We're seeing closer to 35%, and we're projecting about 40% of our carryout for this next year. So we still got a lot of inventory to work through for this next year. We are projecting, the industry is projecting, that we're going to have a lower than anticipated crop size for this year at 2.6 billion pounds. That's because we had major frost damage north of Sacramento and severe drought impacts throughout the state. So what does that mean going forward? Probably the drought impacts are going to linger with us for quite some time, even though acreage is driving the increasing production of almonds. Drought is also going to put a damper on it. So if we can dig our way out of these almonds for the next year to 18 months, we get this market back into good shape, and then we'll be able to hopefully match demand, and that's what all the buyers want to see happen. Okay. So how are we doing on time? Do we have time?
I think we're good. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna roll through the slides pretty quickly. So just, I want to highlight a few key production issues. One is the modernizing of varieties. Self-fertile varieties are coming in the marketplace. Often the market has been slow to respond to that. They're starting to respond to these types of varieties and finding homes for these varieties that are at their highest and best value. And so we're going to continue to see self-fertile varieties, which is also going to make it more efficient.
I don't know how I did that.
You get a close-up view of independence there.
I'll just hope that doesn't happen again. You ready for me to advance?
Yeah, go ahead. All right. And bees. So pollinators are a key subject. If you've heard of hive decline, you've also probably heard that the Varroa Mite, which is a parasite of honeybees, has been a real major problem over the past 10, 15 years. That continues to be. So domestic beekeepers are fighting that. Now they found some new ways to deal with that. They're able to put them in storage. It's a controlled climate storage that kind of eliminates a lot of the Varroa Mite pressure. But beekeepers are family farmers also, and their costs are going up. It's expensive, so we'll see the cost of bees increase, and bees will almost always be in short supplies. All right, and then water. I don't think the problem with water is going away. One point that I'll mention is these 4 letters here, SGMA, Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, essentially means that we can only use as much water as we replenish into the groundwater aquifers, and those regulations are coming into place in 2025. So we've got a lot of growers, especially in the south part of the valley, that are preparing for those. They're going to see increased limitations on water. And so we're also going to see acreage migrate to the more water secure areas. Next slide. And labor. Labor is actually what's been driving a lot of the boom in acreage with almonds, because other crops needed to be picked by hand, and labor was expensive, and not only just the price of labor, but also labor laws with ag overtime and limitations on guest workers. And so that's been driving everything towards mechanized agriculture. And so I think we're also seeing a technology renaissance in other crops where what once was hand labor. I just recently saw, the whole Delta, California used to be asparagus, and no asparagus that pulled out. That was because of labor. You can track that back to some legislative actions taken in 17, 18, 19 with overtime and increases. Now there's machines that can do harvest asparagus, and even give the Delta growers to bring back some asparagus. But and then also other industries that we rely upon, the dairy business, which is a big one around here. We're actually codependent upon them because they use our hulls as feed. But their prices are going up, and anything such as peaches we've mentioned, peaches have to be handpicked. So it's not only expensive, but sometimes you just can't get food for it. Okay. And supply chain. So I could do a whole talk on supply chain alone, but to illustrate the point, we're selling all over the world, and our ports have structural and fundamental backlogs that we're working on getting out. Much of it is being addressed. There is a new shipping act that will hopefully address some of this. Also, just the way that commerce has been, it's been more advantageous for containers to go back empty than to go back with low value ag products. So we're hoping to turn that around, and we're seeing a lot of progress in that point. And I'd encourage you to look into shipping and logistics folks as expert in that as we move forward, because I don't think this issue is going away. Right?
So you mentioned earlier Port of Oakland specifically. Do you also use Port of Stockton or even into San
So Port of
Francisco?
Stockton is used for a lot of industrial supplies and fertilizer. They do not get container ships in there that are large enough for what we use. So Oakland historically has been an agriculture port, as well as whatever comes in from Asia comes in, and then agriculture goes out. So it's not just as rice, tomatoes, all the other commodities. But Oakland is constrained by size. They've also been constrained by technology. They have not modernized their technology in so much as places like Long Beach or the Port of Houston. They've got a lot of modern technology there where they can move containers much faster. So about 60% of agricultural exports and almonds go out of Oakland still currently, and we will continue to do that because it's our best and most short approach. But there's some constraints at the Oakland ports.
I didn't realize ports specialized in certain types of things.
Yeah, I mean, among other things, but yeah, it's most of the products going out of Oakland tend to be agriculture. Well, because of California and all the processors up here,
Central Valley.
Long Beach as well, but we've got to get it down to Long Beach. Now, what we've been doing is a transrail out of the Port of Oakland, either directly out of the Port of Oakland, or there's some other points in California where we can get down to the Port of Long Beach and get containers when they're there. During the height of the pandemic, the problem was the shipping containers would come in from Asia first into Long Beach and LA, unload in Long Beach and LA, and because it was so advantageous to go directly back to Asia and pick up semiconductors or cars or computers or whatever else, instead of taking that next leg up and loading up in Oakland, they were just going right back, and so they were bypassing Oakland completely. So that was a major problem. So we're looking at other options as well on the East Coast to move to Europe or to South America out of Houston. So there are more options that we have now that we've looked into, and some of those are actually cost advantages. So Oakland is going to have to do some work, and we're working with them very closely to help them do that.
And freight like that never goes out of San Francisco?
I don't believe there's any commercial
Not anymore.
specific sides out of San Francisco. It's all Oakland. Yeah, and there is in a previous business, I know there's a lot of fertilizer that comes into Port Stockton, but they're in specialized ships because they need a deep water channel in there, and it's not quite deep enough to get the big ships like that in there in stock. All right, and water, we've talked about water quite a bit, but one of the things the industry is doing is really looking at how can we get more crop per crop, and using micro irrigation. Now, I think one of the best advantageous things is is using new technology for sensing that we can have the right amount of water at the right time for those almonds so that we produce the most crops. So we're really focused on that. We have, as part of our sustainability program, we have our growth assessment. Part of that assessment is a learning opportunity to understand how they realize water on them. And we have what we call our orchard stewardship incentive plan, addresses all the areas of sustainability. We work very closely with the almond board, but one of the things we focus on is pollinators. And we work with a nonprofit organization called Project AFSM, who provides cover crop or flowering plants in the middle of the rows to provide additional forage for bees so that they are even healthier than what they get from almonds. So this picture up in the right-hand corner is a bee bucket. And you would think that, well, there's water all over the place during February. There's not this last couple of years. So we put specific bee watering stations out in the orchard and help to promote the health of those pollinators. And not only domesticated bees, but also native bees as well.
Is that flour used in almonds also mustard, like in a lot of the grape vineyards?
Yeah, well, yeah, they'll use a combination very similar to what they put in vineyards, mustard, radish, clover type of a mix. We support the Seeds for Bees. They offer low cost or subsidized cover crops to growers to get started in that. And it's really been fun to watch our growers get involved in that. And it really does make a difference, even though almonds are a complete nutrition during the period that those almonds are blooming, which is about 5 weeks. When the bees get there, they like to, it's more advantageous that they have something to feed on before bloom and after bloom as well. So if we can expand out blooming flowers on each side of that, those hives will become even stronger. And also there's a lot of research that shows that a variety of pollen nutrition makes those hives that much more stronger than just the complete almond pollen they get during the 5 weeks of almond.
Well, it makes sense. We all do better if we eat more variety anyway.
Right.
And I would think that helps hold some moisture at the
It
source
does.
level.
Well, that's the whole other benefit to cover crops is, agronomically for the grower themselves. It's a soil builder, but also carbon sequestration. There's a lot of research now that shows that those cover crops down the middle sequester even more carbon, which when they till those back under into the orchard or vineyards, that carbon sequestration is then released as fertilizer, and it's just a more sustainable way to go about things. So, oftentimes what was old is new, and if you look back in the 100 years ago, there was a lot of multi-cropping going on, and now we're back to it.
Sorry, I think you wanted to say something.
He answered the question. I was just wondering if you were gonna till that back in.
Yeah, they
You
do.
answered that.
Yeah, they'll take that, they'll mow it. Typically, they'll mow it or do some light tillage. In almonds, we like to keep what we call the almond orchard floor so that we can pick up nuts. Right. So we'll keep it kind of almost like this as much as possible. What they'll do is they'll mow that down in successive patterns, and it'll decompose over the summertime. And it's amazing how rapidly it decomposes. It goes back into the soil. But it puts on quite a show, but it is beneficial for the orchards. My last slide. Any questions?
So Ben, one of the questions I had for you is you showed a couple of your slides there where there's been actually more acres put in production in the last few years. With the costs increasing in so many different areas, different categories, and those kinds of things, has the cost been a driver for why we're seeing some of the multi-generational family farms where the next generation is just opting out and saying, I'm not gonna fight that fight?
Yep.
Is that part of the conversation, or?
Yeah. I would say it's always been the conversation, but I would say in the last 6 months, I'm hearing some very sincere conversations of, I think I'm gonna retire, or I have other businesses. I think I'm gonna go focus on those other businesses. Well, if you go back a couple of years ago, we weren't having those conversations.
Yeah.
And it's a tough subject. I think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see a lot of growers that are, and I think that either A, have other options, or choose other options, or B, Some will, I mean, family farms are businesses. So it all depends on how they have built up for the last few years.
Structured.
If you look at, most of our growers are multi-generational growers. You know, you ask them about this right now, they go, well, I figured this would happen. So when those times were good, they were putting some money away. They weren't buying new pickups. They might buy a little bit of equipment, but they were preparing for a rainy day. Unfortunately, we've got some growers that are new to almonds, maybe in the last 10 years, that thought that it was going to be the land of milk and honey and continue, and maybe don't have the reserves to be able to continue. They're probably going to be forced to make a change. I suspect there will be some of that, hopefully not too much. We're hoping that this market will turn around within the next 18 months. You know, really just kind of depends on the supply chain situation. We know the demands there, long-term demands there. We just got to get the supply to match up, and that's always been a trick over the past 50 years to how to handle that supply and demand situation.
I might have tuned out, but did you talk about almond milk and other products?
I haven't, no. Yeah.
So, almond milk, probably last 10 years, has kind of grown in popularity.
Yeah.
You guys don't actually produce any, or do you?
We do, yeah, we have our product is Almond Breeze. It's in a way, it's kind of one of our flagship products. And as a company, we look at innovation as a driver for producing that demand. And one of those ways is, can we, you know, almonds are such a versatile product. We can put them into ingredients, we can put them into, they can be eaten as a snack, but they can also be used in a beverage like Almond Breeze. So any new product that we can get them
Where do
into,
you produce?
we produce it in Turlock, as well as we also have a partner that distributes that for us as well.
Who is that for?
It's HP Pudding. HP Pudding.
And then almond butter?
We also do butter as well. Butter's an ingredient. We don't put a label on that, but that's used in the confectionery business and also in baking. A lot of butter.
You produce it yourself?
We do. We produce the base. Yes.
So those are two products, are there others?
Oh yeah, we produce almond flour. We also, all of our, what we call our value-added products, sliced, diced, slivered, anything that goes into a cereal, a candy. You know, if you have almond M&Ms, those are blue diamond almonds that are, you know, small count utes. We look at it that way. Any products in the marketplace, where can we put? I mean, our almonds are so to get on the. This is a great segue in this part of the conversation, which is, you know, where is the demand going to come from? The demand is really a great place to talk about, because plant-based products and nutrition is where the future is going to go. I mean, I love a good steak, but really, if we look at where in products that we currently have and products that we have in the future, it's going to be a simple ingredient list. You think about a Kind bar, right? They say it has these things in it, you can see it. That's going to be the future of food.
So almond milk, how was that grown in the last, let's say, 10 years?
Oh gosh, exponentially. Yeah, exponentially. I don't have figures off the top of my head because that's the consumer side of our
What
business.
percentage of your almonds say?
I don't know. Yeah, that's a different side of the business. I don't know how to answer that question, but it's a fair bit of pounds. Yeah, we use a lot of product to go into that. And actually it has helped with certain varieties that used to be less popular. We will put them into almond breeze.
Is almond milk, he says it's sold outside the state of California?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, sold nationwide, sold worldwide. Matter of fact,
It requires refrigeration.
does not. It's shelf stable and does not.
So.
The product you see in the refrigerated aisle is for preference. It does not have to be shelf. There's a shelf stable version. Yeah, but you know, a good point for demand in Asia. Our Almond Breeze sales are going double digits.
Nice.
It's because those markets traditionally are non-dairy markets to begin with,
Right?
And they really like that almond.
Produced here and sent there? Or
Yes, yes.
Sent over there?
Produced here.
You don't have any partnerships?
We do have partnerships. Yeah,
Where they
we produce it as a base, and then we have it distributed and manufactured, final man packaged.
like a dry milk product.
Yeah, it's a concentrate. Yeah, so we do that, and that's our standard everywhere, because we have, you know, packaging at the end point. And also we have partners that are, have the Blue Diamond brand and also partners that don't have the Blue Diamond brand that have distribution in those countries. We're working on, especially in Asia and other foreign markets. We look for the leaders in those markets to work with us to expand that market as well. And then we're there as well, independently. Yeah, we see lots of growth in the foreign markets in the future. And almond grease is one of them. The other product that we produce that's the little engine that could is nut thins. You guys said nut thins? It's a
Yes.
great almond cracker. Some people aren't even aware of it. It's a fantastic product. It's almond and rice and lots of great flavors. And so we're also looking at, what are our next, what are our next innovations? And we're looking at a lot at almond protein powder and where almond protein can be used. Almond flour has been a great product for us. If you look in the stores now, we've got a baking mix where we've got muffins and a cupcake mix, and a cake.
Can you
mix.
make chocolate chip cookies though?
We have a chocolate chip cookie. Yes.
Next time,
I will remember that. I'm not very big, but one of my favorite products, which I understand is probably evolving, is we call them tasty little cups. Have you seen mud cakes? They're a chocolate or confetti mud cake. It's a little cup like this. You put 2 tablespoons of water in it, throw it in the microwave for 50 seconds, and you've got an instant cake. It's amazing. So we're working on it. Believe me, we're working on every avenue that we can put almonds. So those are really great questions. Yeah.
Slightly off topic from where we just were. So you made a slight reference to pistachios. Walnuts have been here, I think, a long time.
Mhm.
How do they value, or how do you see the value of those
Yeah.
going?
So the walnut
Comparatively.
industry struggled a lot. And I would say mostly because there's international competition. Walnuts are going to China, or walnuts are going to other places around. And when it comes to cost of production, they can do it cheaper. And so I think that, we're seeing walnut production decline in California, and the price for walnuts has been very low over the past 5 years. And so many walnut growers in California, unfortunately, are pulling their walnuts out. I think the story is the opposite for pistachios. I think California is one of the leading powerhouses for pistachios. And so there is a lot of possibility of growth for pistachios, and I think a lot of growers are considering pistachios and thinking about pistachios. The thing with pistachios is they don't come into production for about 8 years, and they are a very long-lived tree. But certainly that is a future possibility of pistachios, and there is wonderful is the main player in pistachios. They're stewarding that market, and so that market is definitely. Yeah, we think
You said
they'll
they
grow.
are or are not long-lived trees?
They are.
They are long.
Pistachios can grow 100+ years. Usually,
Wow.
the way they like to say it, if you plant a pistachio tree, that's the last one you'll plant. It'll grow forever. But
Interesting.
they take a long time to get into production. So it's a big investment. So I think that's been the adherence for a lot of growers in the past. It's, do I want to wait 8 years before I get a crop, and then, even longer than almonds to get it, break even. So, and they all compare too. So if you're only a pistachio grower, you got to live through your ups and downs every year. So a lot of diversified growers have been adding pistachios. So yeah, it's an evolution with crops and California.
Interesting.
Well, pistachios, you have male and female trees, correct?
Male and female flowers.
Okay,
Yeah, on the same tree.
oh, on the same tree. Heard somewhere you need 7 of one and 3 of the other.
Yep. Yeah, they have to pollinate within the orchard itself, but they will. And a lot of almonds do it too. Is alternate. They have a big crop one year, like crop next year. It's just how they kind of bracket back and forth. So that's something in the pistachio market they're looking at how do they manage their supply too. If you're a major food buyer, you want same amount every year, same time, you want the lowest price. Well, Mother Nature has other.
Right,
So,
right.
It's kind of hard.
Is olive crop something that's increasing around here? Because it seems like I'm seeing those
Olive
trees more.
oil, yeah, so if you see them on a narrow planting, they're mostly olive oil, and that is increasing too. I think that's pretty solid market. I think that, yeah, it's, there has been some difficulties with getting the yields out of them based on differences in heat, that sort of thing, but many growers have got that figured out. So yeah, that's another good one. I mean, grapes will continue to be a good crop in my opinion, but I think there's substantial investment. And the way the world market is with grapes, they're going to, they'll see the ups and downs as well. So every crop that ends up being sort of a true commodity, which is almost all of them, they'll have boom years and bust years, and then you factor in weather with that too. So really, many of our birds are diversified. They'll have some grapes, they'll have some almonds, they'll have some walnuts, some pistachios, or if they're down south, they'll have cotton. Tomatoes have come back in a pretty good way. The whole system got cleaned out during COVID, where everybody bought their canned tomato sauce and was baking. And so my understanding is the canneries are buying extra tomatoes to build those inventories back up. So, a lot of the tried and true still continues to be that. California is still strong. Tomato producer, rice. In rice, the water is a limitation, but rice is still a very good crop for California. So it's many strong crops for California, but you just got to keep diversity up.
You produce almond oil?
We do. Yeah, we produce almond oil, and what's interesting about that, we've emerged into a new market, which is a non-food almond oil in the health and beauty care space.
Okay.
So if you see, shampoos that have almond oil in them, could be blue almond oil.
There you go.
Very exciting. So we're looking at that as a very profitable market. We're looking to expand that as much as we possibly can.
Good.
Okay, one more time for those online. Anyone have a
Not seeing any
question?
other questions online? Glad to have the participation
All right.
today for sure. So Ben, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. Your background and knowledge is certainly in depth and appreciated. So
Thanks for having me.
that's great. Very good. So just a quick announcement as we wrap up our time for today. We're just a couple of minutes before 1. Our next meeting is scheduled for the 5th of October, coming up already less than a month away.
Yeah, it comes quick.
Kind of amazing, but we're still working to secure our presenter for that and the next couple of meetings to wrap up our year here for 2022. So we'll get some more information out through the chamber in the next couple of weeks when we confirm our speaker lineup. And if any of you have some suggestions on different industries that are impacting our local economy and those kinds of things, if you can reach out to us here at the chamber and help connect those conversations, certainly appreciate and welcome that as well. Again, just as a reminder, in future meetings, certainly love to have you, have you in attendance, but we'd love to have you RSVP and help us kind of prepare as well that way. So I think that wraps up our time for today. Tricia, do you have any other announcements?
Yeah, just a reminder that this Friday at the Ace Ag Pavilion at MJC is our harvest luncheon. Like, the year escapes me, but it's been going on a long time, close to 60 years. And on Wednesday, September 28th is our co-hosted candidate forum breakfast at the Doubletree in partnership with Opportunity Stanislaus. Ticket sales, if you want to eat, are on sale now and sponsorships are open. Ticket sales for harvest will continue through tomorrow morning, midday probably. So all are welcome.
Good. All right. Well, with that, thank you all again. Appreciate it. I'll get you back to your afternoon, and thanks so much for attending. We'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Hey guys, have a good day.